The candles guttered in Lucy's secluded cabin, their flames dancing shadows across walls lined with dried herbs and ancient texts. The scent of sage and rosemary couldn't mask the underlying stench, the sweet, rotting smell of death creeping closer with each labored breath Michael took. Lucy knelt beside him on the rough wooden floor, her knees aching, her hands trembling as she traced the edge of his face. His skin was pale, clammy beneath her fingertips, and those veins, gods, those darkened veins spreading like black lightning across his neck and chest. They pulsed with the ancient poison killing him from the inside out. Months. She'd hesitated for months, weighing duty against desire, sacred law against the love that consumed her. And now, with hours, maybe less, remaining before the man who held her heart took his last breath, she'd made her choice. The metallic taste of fear coated her tongue as she reached for the bowl of ash beside her. Every witch knew the rules. Every witch understood the price of breaking them. But as Michael's chest rose and fell in shallow, painful gasps, Lucy found she didn't care about rules, or prices, or the wrath of her coven. She would not watch him die. Lucy dipped her fingers into the ash, the powder soft and cold against her skin. She began to draw, tracing a perfect circle around Michael's body, her hand steady despite the chaos in her heart. The ash line glowed faintly as it formed, responding to her intention, to the forbidden magic she was about to unleash. "Echo, echo, Azarak," she whispered, the ancient words tasting like copper and starlight on her tongue. "Echo, echo, Zomalak." The air in the cabin thickened, pressing against her skin like a living thing. Power gathered in the spaces between heartbeats, humming with anticipation. Michael's eyes fluttered open. Those green eyes, usually so warm, now clouded with pain and the fog of approaching death, focused on her face. Recognition flashed across his features, followed immediately by horror. "No!" His voice was barely a whisper, raw and desperate. "Lucy, no. Don't." She continued chanting, her voice growing stronger, more resonant. The words of binding, of blood and magic and sacrifice. "I'd rather die," Michael gasped, trying to lift his hand to stop her, but his arm fell uselessly back to the floor. "I'd rather die than watch you destroy yourself for me. Please, Lucy, please." Lucy met his gaze, letting him see the steel in her soul, the absolute certainty of her choice. "I am the strongest witch alive," she said, her voice cutting through his protests. "I can save you. I won't lose you, Michael. Not like this. Not when I have the power to stop it. The coven will— damn the coven!" She completed another arc of the circle, the ash glowing brighter now, pulsing with her heartbeat. "Damn the rules! Damn everything except this! You will live!" Tears streaked down Michael's temples, disappearing into his sweat-dampened hair. "I love you," he choked out, "but I can't let you— you can't stop me." The circle closed, a perfect unbroken line surrounding his body. Lucy felt the magic snap into place, sealing them both inside its boundary. "You're too weak, my love, and I am too strong." She positioned herself beside him, their bodies nearly touching within the circle's confines. The ritual required proximity, required the joining of flesh and magic and will. Lucy pressed her palm against Michael's chest, feeling his heart flutter weakly beneath her hand. "By blood and bone, by spirit and stone," she intoned, her voice rising with power. "I bind my magic to his flesh. I bind my strength to his weakness. I bind my life to his death, and demand the balance shift." The magic erupted from her core like a dam breaking, a river of pure power surging out through her palm and into Michael's chest. Lucy gasped at the sensation. It was agony and ecstasy combined, every cell in her body screaming as her essence poured out of her and into him. The poison in Michael's veins recoiled from her magic like a living thing, writhing and fighting as her power wrapped around it, smothering it, consuming it. She could feel his wolf, that primal ancient part of him that made him shifter, reaching for her magic with desperate hunger. "Feed," she urged it silently. "Take what you need. Take everything." Michael's back arched, his mouth opening in a silent scream as witch magic and wolf instinct collided inside him. Lucy felt his pain as if it were her own, felt the poison's last desperate resistance, felt her magic diving deeper and deeper into him, bonding with parts of him she'd never touched before. The cabin spun around them. Or perhaps they were spinning, caught in a vortex of power that bent the very air. Lucy couldn't tell anymore. She could only hold on, could only keep channeling her magic into Michael, could only pray to gods she'd stopped believing in that this would work. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the circle's light flaring bright as a newborn star, illuminating their intertwined bodies in blinding white radiance. Then nothing. Time moved strangely in the space between life and death. Lucy floated in darkness, aware but not conscious, existing but not living. She could feel Michael beside her, could sense the bond between them, a glowing thread of magic connecting her essence to his wolf. On the first day, Michael's wolf stirred. It was a tentative thing at first, a gentle pull on the thread of magic Lucy had woven between them. The wolf was cautious, testing the connection, tasting the power flowing into it. Then, as it sensed no resistance, no barriers, it began to feed in earnest. Lucy's magic poured into the wolf like water into a desert. It drank deeply, greedily, pulled by an instinct older than memory. The poison that had been killing Michael retreated before the onslaught, dissolving under the relentless assault of witch magic guided by wolf hunger. On the second day, Michael's strength began to return. Lucy was dimly aware of changes happening in his body. Muscles regenerating, growing denser and more powerful than they'd ever been. Bones strengthening, restructuring themselves around the new power flowing through them. His heart, which had been struggling to beat, now pounded with renewed vigor, pumping magic-infused blood through his system. The link between them should have broken then. The ritual was designed to heal, not to transform. But Michael's wolf, intoxicated by the taste of power it had never known, refused to release its hold. It felt too good, this strength, this ancient magic singing in his blood. The wolf wanted more. And Lucy, unconscious and unaware, had no way to stop it from taking. On the third day, the transformation completed. Michael was no longer simply a wolf shifter, one of many in his pack. The magic had changed him, elevated him, made him into something that had no name in the modern world. Something ancient stirred in his bones, whispering of power that predated the divisions between witch and wolf, between magic and nature. His senses exploded outward. He could hear the heartbeat of a rabbit a mile away, could smell the individual scents of every person who'd walked past the cabin in the last week, could taste the emotions of sleeping creatures in the forest around them. The world became a symphony of sensation, overwhelming and intoxicating. Power crackled under his skin like electricity, begging to be released, to be used, to reshape reality according to his will. When there was nothing left for the wolf to take, when Lucy's magic had been drained to the last drop, the link finally broke. Lucy's eyes opened to a world that felt hollow. She lay on the floor of her cabin, still inside the ash circle, though the line had faded to gray dust. Daylight streamed through the windows. 3 days had passed then. Her body ached as if she'd been beaten, every muscle screaming in protest as she slowly pushed herself up to sit. And there, standing by the window with his back to her, was Michael. Relief crashed over her like a wave, stealing her breath. "It worked," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "You're alive." Michael turned, and Lucy's relief flickered with something she couldn't name. He looked the same dark hair, same strong jaw, same body she knew as well as her own. But something fundamental had changed. His presence filled the room in a way it never had before, made the air feel heavy, charged. And his eyes, God's, his eyes, they held a light that hadn't been there before, something wild and powerful and not entirely human. "Yes," Michael said, his voice casual, almost distracted. "All thanks to you." He flexed his hands, watching with fascination as the air around his fingers shimmered. A book on the far shelf rattled, then flew across the room to land in his palm. He stared at it with wonder, then looked back at Lucy with a smile that didn't quite reach those glowing eyes. "I can feel it," he said. "The power. It's incredible, Lucy. I've never felt anything like this." Lucy forced herself to stand, swaying slightly as dizziness washed over her. She felt empty, like a cup drained of water, like a candle burned down to nothing. But she pushed the sensation aside, focusing on Michael. "We need to examine you," she said, moving toward him. "What I did was forbidden for a reason. The magic might be unstable. You need—" "I feel fine." Michael set the book down, his attention already wandering to other objects in the room. A vase lifted off the table, spinning slowly in midair. "Better than fine. I feel powerful." Lucy's heart began to race. She reached for her magic, preparing to cast a diagnostic spell to see exactly what the ritual had done to him. The words of power formed on her lips, ancient and familiar. "Revelio Essentia," she intoned. Nothing happened. Lucy's breath caught in her throat. She tried again, putting more force behind the words. "Revelio Essentia." Still nothing. No surge of magic. No response from the power that had lived in her bones since birth. Just emptiness. Panic clawed at her chest. She tried a simpler spell, something children learned in their first year of training. A basic light charm, then a summoning, then just a spark of flame at her fingertips. Nothing. 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 "Lucy?" Michael had stopped playing with the vase, concerned by her expression. "What's wrong? You look pale. You should rest. You use so much power in that ritual." Lucy's voice came out strangled. She swallowed hard, forced herself to breathe. "Yes, rest. That's all I need." But she knew better. Deep in her soul, in that place where her magic had always lived, there was only silence. She hadn't just drained her power, she'd lost it entirely. The ritual had taken everything, fed it all to Michael's starving wolf until there was nothing left to take. She was powerless. Completely, utterly powerless. And Michael, with his newfound strength thrumming through the cabin like a second heartbeat, had no idea. "You should sleep," Michael said gently, still oblivious to her horror. He guided her toward the bed, his touch sending shivers down her spine, not from desire, but from the sheer power radiating off him. "You've been taking care of me for days. Let me take care of you now." Lucy nodded numbly, allowing him to help her into bed. She couldn't tell him. Not yet. Not when he was still adjusting to whatever he'd become. With power like that, unstable and new, he needed an anchor. He needed her to be strong, to guide him, to keep him from losing himself. But how could she anchor him when she was nothing more than human now? Michael pressed a kiss to her forehead, already distracted by the sensations flooding his enhanced senses. "Rest, love. When you wake up, we'll figure everything out together." He left the cabin, and Lucy heard him moving through the forest with impossible speed, testing his new limits. Alone, she finally allowed the tears to come. While Lucy slept fitfully, plagued by dreams of emptiness and loss, Michael discovered the true extent of his transformation. He moved through the pack territory like a ghost, covering distances in heartbeats that should have taken minutes. The world had become sharp, crystalline, every detail blazingly clear. He could see the individual veins in leaves 100 yards away, could count the scales on a fish jumping in the distant stream, could trace the patterns of wind moving through the trees. But it wasn't just his physical senses that had changed. When he approached the pack grounds, wolves froze. Their eyes widened, ears flattening against their skulls, tails tucking between their legs. They trembled at his presence, responding to something primal in him that demanded submission. Michael had never commanded such respect. As one of the lowest-ranking wolves in the pack, he'd endured mockery and disdain his entire life, too weak to challenge for rank, too gentle to inspire fear. Worthy of a witch's love, perhaps, but unworthy of a wolf's respect. Now, as he walked through the gathering area, the strongest warriors stepped aside. The pack alpha, Bennett, watched him with narrowed eyes, clearly sensing the shift in power dynamics, but uncertain how to address it. "Michael," Bennett's voice held a note of unease. "You look different," Michael smiled, and several wolves flinched at the expression. He could feel their fear, taste it on the air like honey on his tongue. It was intoxicating. "I am different," Michael said softly. "I'm better." A younger wolf, Marcus, who'd tormented Michael for years, stepped forward with bravado that didn't quite mask his nervousness. "You think you're tough now? You're still the same weak." Michael's hand shot out. He didn't touch Marcus, didn't even get close, but the younger wolf flew backward as if struck by an invisible fist, slamming into a tree with a satisfying crack. Marcus slumped to the ground, conscious but gasping, staring at Michael with undisguised terror. "I'm not weak anymore," Michael said, his voice carrying an edge that made grown warriors step back. "Anyone else want to test that theory?" Silence answered him. Michael looked around at the assembled pack, at faces that had mocked him, dismissed him, treated him as worthless. Now they looked at him with fear and awe, and something dark and hungry in his chest purred with satisfaction. This was what power felt like. This was what respect tasted like. And God's help him, he wanted more. He could hear heartbeats accelerating in terror, smell the sharp tang of fear sweat, sense the desperate desire of every wolf present to flee from his presence. His enhanced senses painted a complete picture of their submission, their recognition of his dominance. Marcus was right about one thing. Michael had been the same weak wolf yesterday. But today? Today he was a god among them. The realization should have troubled him, should have sent warning bells clanging in his mind. Instead, it thrilled him to his core. Michael turned and ran, pushing his new body to its limits, reveling in the sensation of earth flying beneath his feet, of branches whipping past at impossible speeds, of power singing in his blood like the finest wine. He couldn't wait to tell Lucy. Couldn't wait to share this incredible gift she'd given him. They could rule together now. Her with her formidable magic, him with this ancient power. No one would dare mock them again. No one would dare question their worth. Finally, after a lifetime of being overlooked, Michael mattered. When Michael burst back into the cabin an hour later, flushed with excitement and barely contained energy, Lucy was sitting at the table. She looked up at his entrance, and the expression on her face stopped him cold. Horror. That's what he saw in her eyes. Horror mixed with fear, and something else he couldn't identify. "Lucy?" He approached slowly, confused by her reaction. "What's wrong? I thought you'd be happy. Look what you did. Look what you gave me." He demonstrated, making objects dance through the air with mere thoughts, moving faster than her eyes could follow, letting power crackle visibly across his skin like blue lightning. "You gave me this power," he continued, his enthusiasm undimmed by her silence. "We can rule together now. You as the most powerful witch in the coven, and me as whatever I've become." an untouchable alpha. We can do anything, Lucy. No one will look at us with disdain anymore. No one will mock my lowly status or question why you chose me. Michael. Lucy's voice was steady, but he could hear the tremor beneath. You need to learn control. This power, it will destroy you if you don't master it. Her words felt like a bucket of cold water. Michael's excitement faltered. Destroy me? Lucy, you gave me this. You risked everything to save my life, to give me this strength. Why aren't you happy about it? I am happy you're alive, she said carefully. But power like this needs an anchor. It needs control. You need... I have you. Michael knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. That's why I have you. You're the strongest witch alive. You can help me control this. You can be my anchor. Together we're unstoppable. Fate is finally smiling on us, Lucy. After everything we've endured, everything we've suffered, we finally have the power to shape our own destiny. Lucy looked at their joined hands, and Michael could have sworn he saw tears gathering in her eyes. You need to rest, she said quietly. This is all happening too fast. We both need time to adjust. She was right, Michael realized. He was moving too quickly, overwhelming her with his enthusiasm. Of course she was concerned. She'd just performed a ritual that had left her exhausted. She needed time to recover her strength before she could help him harness his new power. You're right, he said, squeezing her hands gently. I'm sorry. You need to rest and recover. Take all the time you need, love. We'll figure this out together when you're back to full strength. He kissed her forehead and left the cabin again, eager to continue exploring his abilities, to test every new limit, to discover what else he could do. Behind him, Lucy sat alone in the gathering darkness, staring at her hands as if they belonged to a stranger. The hours crawled past like wounded things. Lucy waited until she was certain Michael was far enough away, lost in his exploration of power and possibility. Then she stood on trembling legs and approached the small altar in the corner of her cabin. A single white candle stood in the center. Virgin wax never burned. The simplest spell. The first magic any witch learned. Lucy raised her hand, focused her will, and spoke the word that should have ignited the wick. Nothing. She tried again, and again, and again, until her voice was hoarse and tears streamed down her face. Still nothing. She attempted every basic spell she knew. Tried to summon a breeze, to move a feather, to sense the magical signatures of the herbs on her shelves. Every attempt met with the same devastating silence. Her magic was gone. Not sleeping. Not depleted. Gone. The ritual had taken everything, every ounce of power, every spark of magic that had made her Lucy the witch instead of just Lucy. She'd poured it all into Michael, and his wolf had drunk until the well ran dry. She sank to the floor, hugging her knees to her chest, and finally allowed herself to acknowledge the full scope of what she'd done. She'd saved Michael's life, but she'd lost herself in the process. And she had no idea how to tell him that the anchor he was counting on was nothing more than a powerless human now. The worst part was the decision forming in her mind, hard and bitter but necessary. She had to go to her coven, had to confess what she'd done, had to beg for their help even though she knew what awaited her there. Judgment, condemnation, punishment for breaking the most sacred laws. But what choice did she have? Michael's power was growing by the hour, becoming more unstable, more intoxicating. Without proper anchoring, without someone to teach him control, he would lose himself to it completely. She'd seen the gleam in his eyes, the way he'd smiled when describing the fear he inspired in the pack. That wasn't her Michael. That was the power corrupting him, changing him into something she barely recognized. Lucy stood, wiping her tears, squaring her shoulders. She looked at her reflection in the darkened window. a woman who'd once commanded the elements, who'd made the earth tremble and the sky weep. Now she saw only a hollow shell, a shadow of former glory. But she was still Lucy. Still the woman who loved Michael enough to damn herself. Still the witch who'd made an impossible choice. And she would find a way to save him again, even if it destroyed her completely in the process. Behind her reflection in the glass, barely visible in the darkness beyond the cabin, a figure watched. Selena stood between the trees, her lips curved in a satisfied smile. Everything was unfolding exactly as planned. The trap was set. The pieces were in motion. And soon, very soon, Lucy would fall, taking her arrogant certainty and her undeserved power down with her. Selena's smile widened as she turned and disappeared into the night, leaving Lucy alone with her grief and her impossible choices. The game had only just begun. The journey to the sacred grove felt like walking toward her own execution. Lucy moved through the forest with leaden steps, each footfall heavy with dread. Dawn light filtered through the canopy above, painting everything in shades of gold and green, but she saw none of its beauty. Her world had shrunk to the churning anxiety in her gut and the hollowness where her magic used to live. She'd left Michael sleeping, or pretending to sleep, back at the cabin. He'd returned late the previous night, crackling with barely contained energy, his eyes glowing with that unnatural light. He'd tried to touch her, to pull her close, but she'd made excuses about exhaustion, about needing rest. The truth was, she couldn't bear the feel of her own magic humming under his skin while she remained empty. As she walked, memories assaulted her. Not the gentle, bittersweet recollections of her time with Michael, but harsher truths she'd been avoiding for years. Lucy remembered the first time she'd realized her power exceeded that of her sisters. She'd been 17, newly initiated into the coven's deeper mysteries. During a group ritual, her magic had flared so bright it had drowned out the others' contributions entirely. The high priestess had praised her. The other witches had stepped back, making room for her brilliance, and Lucy had loved it. She'd loved being special, being the strongest, being untouchable. She'd grown from a talented girl into the most powerful witch the coven had seen in generations, and with that power had come arrogance she'd worn like a crown. How many times had she dismissed her sister's concerns? How many traditions had she bent or broken because she believed herself above such limitations? How many witches had she looked down on, secure in her superiority? Lucy's stomach churned with shame as specific memories surfaced. Elena, asking for help with a difficult healing spell, and Lucy brushing her off because she was too busy with more important magic. Margot, gently suggesting that Lucy attend more coven gatherings, and Lucy laughing as if the very idea was beneath her. Sarah, warning her that using forbidden magic always carried a price, and Lucy responding with a condescending smile and a reminder of who was the strongest witch present. She'd been insufferable. She could see that now, with the clarity that came from losing everything. But would her sisters be willing to look past years of arrogance to help her now? Lucy knew the answer even before the sacred grove came into view. The 13 ancient oaks stood in a perfect circle, their branches intertwining overhead to form a natural cathedral. Power thrummed in the air. She couldn't feel it anymore, but she could see its effects in the way the leaves shimmered with otherworldly light, how the ground within the circle seemed to pulse with a gentle heartbeat. Lucy had loved this place once, had felt at home here, connected to the deep magic that ran through the earth like veins of gold. Now, standing at its edge, she felt like a stranger approaching a locked door. She took a breath and stepped forward. The reaction was immediate. The 12 witches gathered in the grove turned as one, their faces shifting from surprise to shock, to something harder. The air itself seemed to recoil from her presence, the magic that saturated this place recognizing that she no longer belonged. "Lucy?" Elena's voice held disbelief. What are you? She has some nerve. The cold voice cut through the murmurs, silencing everyone. Selena emerged from behind the largest oak, and Lucy's heart sank. Her rival was as beautiful as ever. Dark hair cascading over her shoulders, sharp features arranged in an expression of cold satisfaction, power radiating from her like heat from a flame. Selena had always been second to Lucy in strength, and she'd never forgiven that fact. Now, as she looked at Lucy with undisguised triumph, Lucy understood that this confrontation had been inevitable. Years of resentment had been building toward this moment. The all-powerful Lucy seeks our help? Selena's voice dripped with mock sympathy. How the mighty have fallen. Lucy forced herself to stand straight, to meet Selena's gaze without flinching. I made a mistake. I need... You need? Selena laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. You need? That's rich, Lucy. You've spent years proving you need no one, that you're superior to all of us. What could we possibly offer someone of your incomparable power? The other witches murmured agreement, and Lucy felt the hostility thickening in the air like smoke. I know I've been... difficult, Lucy began, choosing her words carefully. But this is important. My mate was cursed, poisoned by ancient magic, and you performed a forbidden ritual to save him. Selena stepped closer, circling Lucy like a predator. We know. Did you think we wouldn't sense the disturbance? The laws you broke? The sacred balance you disrupted? He was dying. Lucy's voice cracked, despite her efforts to remain composed. I couldn't just watch him die. You broke every sacred rule for love? Selena's eyes glittered with malice. How romantic. Except we both know that's not the whole truth, is it, Lucy? You didn't do it just for love. You did it to prove you could. To show off your power, your superiority. To demonstrate that rules that bind the rest of us don't apply to the great and powerful Lucy. The accusation hit like a physical blow, because there was truth in it. Lucy had believed herself above the rules, had thought her power made her special enough to act without consequence. Even as she'd drawn that ash circle, part of her had been certain she could handle any fallout, that her strength would be enough to manage whatever price the magic demanded. She'd been wrong. Everything works with balance, Selena continued, her voice rising with righteous anger. Every spell has a cost. Every action creates a reaction. You know this. We all know this. It's the first lesson we teach our daughters, but you thought yourself exempt from the natural order, didn't you? You thought your power made you special. I was desperate, Lucy whispered. You were arrogant. Selena turned to address the other witches. How many times has Lucy dismissed our counsel? How many traditions has she ignored? How many of us has she humiliated with her condescension? The floodgates opened. Years of resentment poured out in a torrent of accusations. She called my work adequate at best, Margot said, her voice tight with old hurt. Made me feel like a child fumbling with matches. She missed my daughter's initiation because she couldn't be bothered, Elena added. Said she had more important things to do. Each accusation was a dagger, and Lucy deserved every thrust. She'd done all of those things and more, secure in her belief that being the strongest meant she didn't have to concern herself with the feelings of lesser witches. Gods, she'd been insufferable. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate, but Lucy forced them out anyway. You're right. About all of it. I've been arrogant and dismissive and cruel. I thought my power made me better than you, and I was wrong. I'm so sorry. For a moment, she thought she saw Elena's expression soften. But Selena moved quickly, capitalizing on the mob's anger. Sorry? Selena's laugh was bitter. She's sorry now that she needs our help. Now that she's facing consequences. Where was this humility when she was looking down on us? Where was this remorse when she was breaking our most sacred laws? Please, Lucy said, hating the desperation in her voice but unable to suppress it. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I've been terrible. But Michael, he's not himself. The power is corrupting him, and without proper anchoring. Without your power, you mean? Selena's smile was vicious. You can't anchor him because you drained yourself saving him, and now you want us to clean up your mess. The truth of it settled over the grove like a shroud. Lucy had come here hoping for mercy, for compassion, for her sisters to look past her sins and help her save the man she loved. But she'd burned too many bridges, stepped on too many toes, proven herself unworthy of the solidarity she now desperately needed. I call for a vote, Selena announced. All in favor of banishing Lucy from our coven for breaking sacred law and disrupting the natural balance. Hands rose one by one. Some quickly, some reluctantly, but they rose. Elena hesitated longest, her eyes meeting Lucy's with something like pity. But even she raised her hand in the end. The vote was unanimous. Then it's decided. Selena's satisfaction was palpable. Lucy, you are hereby cast out from the Moonhaven Coven. Your connection to our sacred grove is severed. You are forbidden from associating with any of us, or participating in our rituals. You are alone. The formal banishment ritual began. The 12 witches joined hands, forming a circle that excluded Lucy. They chanted in the old tongue, their voices harmonizing into a sound that resonated in Lucy's chest like a funeral bell. Lucy felt it when the final thread connecting her to her magical heritage snapped, a sensation like a rope breaking, leaving her adrift in empty space. The grove that had always welcomed her now rejected her completely. The magic thrumming through the sacred ground turned its back on her. She was truly alone now, powerless and covenless, cut off from everything that had defined her existence. Selena's victorious smile was the last thing Lucy saw as she turned and walked away. Her spine straight, her head high, despite the devastation churning inside her. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. Not here. Not now. But as the trees closed behind her, and the sacred grove disappeared from view, Lucy allowed herself one thought, clear and brutal in its honesty. I deserve this. Every bit of it. My arrogance has cost me everything. While Lucy walked through her personal devastation, Michael was discovering just how intoxicating power could be. He moved through the supernatural territories like a force of nature, and everywhere he went, the reaction was the same: fear, awe, submission. Wolves who'd once mocked him now couldn't meet his eyes. Alphas who'd dismissed him as unworthy now measured their words carefully in his presence. His physical presence had changed subtly but significantly. His eyes held that constant otherworldly glow, sometimes dim, sometimes bright, but always there. When he entered a room, the air grew heavy, charged with the magic thrumming under his skin. His voice had taken on a quality that made others instinctively obey, not through coercion, but through the recognition of something ancient and powerful. Michael visited every place that had rejected him, every pack that had turned him away, every gathering he'd been excluded from, and he made them acknowledge their mistake. At the Clearwater Pack's territory, the alpha who'd once called him too weak to matter now bowed his head in deference. Michael stood in their gathering hall, hands clasped behind his back, and watched grown warriors tremble. I believe you owe me an apology, Michael said softly. The words carried through the silence like thunder. The alpha swallowed hard. Yes, I apologize for my previous disrespect. I didn't understand your true nature. My true nature was always there, Michael corrected. You simply lacked the vision to see it. Each act of dominance fed something dark and hungry in his chest. The looks of fear, the hurried compliance, the way people now whispered his name with reverence instead of mockery. It was addictive. This was what power felt like. This was what respect tasted like. And yet, Underneath the intoxication, there was a hollowness Michael couldn't explain, a void that grew larger with each display of dominance, each forced submission. He thought of Lucy constantly, expecting her to be there to share in his triumph, to stand beside him as they reshaped the world to their liking. But when he returned to the cabin each night, she seemed more distant, more troubled. She looked at him with something that resembled fear more than love, and it confused him, angered him even. Hadn't she given him this power? Hadn't she wanted him to be strong? After 3 days of watching her flinch at his presence, of seeing worry crease her brow every time he described his latest victory, Michael's patience snapped. "What's wrong with you?" he demanded, cornering her in the cabin. "You should be standing beside me. You should want this with me. We could rule together, the most powerful witch and the strongest wolf. But you seem to hate the powerful me. You preferred when people mocked me, didn't you?" Lucy's eyes filled with tears. "That's not true. I love you, Michael. This isn't about power. It's about control, about not losing yourself to— I'm not losing myself." His voice cracked like a whip, making the windows rattle. "I'm finally finding myself. For the first time in my life, I matter. I'm not just some weak wolf lucky enough to catch a witch's eye. I'm powerful in my own right, and you're trying to take it away." "I'm trying to save you from yourself," Lucy said quietly. "This power, it's changing you into someone I don't recognize." "Maybe you never really knew me," Michael shot back. "Maybe this is who I always was, and you just never bothered to see past the weakness." He stormed out before she could respond, his frustration manifesting in small displays of power. Objects flying across the room, the ground trembling with each step. The distance between them grew into a chasm. Lucy saw the man she loved disappearing behind a mask of power and arrogance. Michael saw Lucy as an obstacle, someone who wanted to keep him weak and manageable. Neither of them noticed the third player entering the game. Selena found Michael at the edge of his newly claimed territory, standing on a cliff overlooking the valley below. She'd tracked him through magical means, following the signature of power that burned like a beacon in her witch's senses. Up close, the stolen magic was even more intoxicating than she'd hoped. It sang to her, called to her, begged to be claimed by someone who truly understood its value. "Magnificent view," she said, announcing her presence with deliberate casualness. Michael turned, instantly on guard, but when he saw her, beautiful, confident, radiating power of her own, some of his tension eased. "Who are you?" "Selena." She moved closer, careful to project admiration rather than threat. "I'm a friend of Lucy's. Or I was before before recent events." Michael's eyes narrowed. "What do you know about Lucy?" "I know she's struggling right now. I know she's not herself." Selena positioned herself beside him, looking out over the valley. "I also know what you've become, and I have to say it's impressive. That kind of power, most wolves wouldn't be able to handle it. But you wear it like you were born to it." The compliment landed exactly as intended. Michael's posture relaxed slightly, a hint of pride coloring his expression. "Lucy doesn't seem to think so," he said bitterly. "She acts like I'm some kind of monster." "Lucy is complicated." Selena chose her words carefully. "She's dealing with a lot right now. Her judgment might be clouded." "What do you mean?" Selena tilted her head, as if considering how much to reveal. "Has Lucy been honest with you about the ritual she performed? About what it cost her?" "She said it was exhausting, that she needs time to recover her strength." "Ah." Selena's expression shifted to something like sympathy. "That's not quite the whole truth." Michael turned to face her fully. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that a witch of Lucy's caliber should be celebrating what you've become. She should be standing beside you, helping you harness that incredible power. Instead, she's pulling away, trying to make you feel guilty for being strong. Don't you find that strange?" Doubt crept into Michael's mind like poison in a wound. He did find it strange. Lucy had given him this power. Why wouldn't she want to celebrate it with him? Has Lucy told you what she lost saving you? Selena asked softly. Michael's heart began to race. What do you mean, lost? The ritual she performed, it wasn't just exhausting. It was transformative, permanent. Selena let the words hang in the air, watching understanding dawn in Michael's eyes. She's powerless, Michael, completely human. She can't anchor you because she has no magic left. She drained herself entirely, saving your life. The world tilted. No. Michael shook his head, refusing to believe it. Lucy is the strongest witch alive. She's just tired. She needs time. She needs you to believe that, Selena interrupted gently. But I can sense these things. There's no magic in her anymore, just emptiness. She's useless to you now, Michael. She can't help you control that power. She can't teach you to harness it. She's just a human woman pretending to be your anchor. The revelation hit Michael like a physical blow. All this time, he'd been counting on Lucy to guide him, to help him master the power burning under his skin. But if she was powerless... She lied to me, he said, his voice flat. She was probably scared, Selena offered, afraid you'd leave her if you knew the truth. After all, what use is a powerless witch to a wolf like you? The poisonous words burrowed deep into Michael's mind, feeding the doubt, nurturing the resentment. He thought of Lucy's strange behavior, her distance, her reluctance to use magic around him. It all made sense now. She'd been lying to him, letting him believe she could be his anchor when she was nothing more than human. I need to talk to her, Michael said, already turning toward the cabin. Of course, Selena smiled. I'll come with you. I'd like to see Lucy's face when she has to admit the truth. Lucy was attempting meditation when they arrived, not because it would restore her power, but because it was all she knew how to do. She needed to find her center, to figure out her next steps now that the coven had abandoned her. The door burst open, and Michael strode in with Selena at his side. Lucy's heart sank. Of all the people to bring to their cabin, why Selena? Her rival's presence here could only mean trouble. Michael? Is it true? His voice was cold, controlled, terrifying in its calm. Are you powerless? Lucy looked at Selena, saw the triumph in her rival's eyes, and understood. Selena had told him, had probably done it in the worst possible way. There was no point in lying anymore. Yes, Lucy said quietly. It's true. I lost everything saving you. My magic is gone. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Michael's face cycled through emotions too quickly to track. Shock, betrayal, anger, something that might have been grief. When he spoke again, his voice was sharp enough to cut. All this time, I thought you were my anchor. I thought you could help me control this power. You let me believe you still had your magic. You lied to me. I was going to tell you. Lucy took a step toward him, one hand outstretched. I just needed time to... To what? Michael's laugh was cruel, unrecognizable. To keep lying? To keep pretending you were something you're not? You're human now, Lucy. You're nothing. Just another weak, powerless human who can't help me, can't stand beside me, can't be what I need. Each word was a dagger in her heart. Lucy tried to reach him, to remind him of everything they'd been through, the love they'd shared, the bond that should have been stronger than magic. Michael, please. I love you. I gave up everything to save your life. Doesn't that mean something? It means you made me believe in a lie. His eyes, glowing with stolen magic, looked at her with cold calculation. If you're useless to me, then I don't need you. I never needed you. The words shattered something fundamental in Lucy's chest. She staggered back as if struck, one hand pressed to her sternum where pain bloomed like a poisonous flower. Selena stepped forward, moving to Michael's side with practiced grace. I can help you, she said, her voice honey-sweet. I can be the anchor you need. I can teach you to harness that power, to become the most powerful wolf in existence, a god among shifters. She traced one finger down his arm, and Michael didn't pull away. You could have the witch's support, our magic, our resources. Everything you've ever wanted, everything you deserve. And what would you want in return? Michael asked, though his eyes were already darkening with interest. Nothing much. Selena's smile was predatory. Just for you to take me as your mate. Leave the powerless human behind and claim someone worthy of standing beside you. Lucy felt the world collapsing around her. This couldn't be happening. Not after everything. Not after what she'd sacrificed. Michael, she said, her voice breaking. Don't do this. I know you're angry, but this isn't you. The power is corrupting you. Please remember who you are. Remember who we were together, for just a moment. One brief, shining moment, uncertainty flickered in Michael's eyes. Some part of him, buried deep beneath the power and the anger, remembered. Remembered their first kiss under the full moon. Remembered the way she'd looked at him like he was enough, exactly as he was. Remembered the ritual where she'd poured her very soul into saving his life. But then Selena's hand settled on his chest, and the moment passed. I dare you to reject me, Lucy said, summoning every ounce of courage she had left. Look me in the eyes and reject our bond. If you can truly do that, if our love means so little to you, then I'll walk away. She believed, with everything she had, that he couldn't do it. That their love was stronger than Selena's manipulation, stronger than his corruption, stronger than the magic singing in his veins. She was wrong. Michael's face hardened into something cold and distant. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute finality. I, Michael Thorne, reject you, Lucy Hartwell, as my mate. Our bond is severed. Our connection is ended. You are nothing to me. The mate bond shattered. Lucy felt it break. A physical sensation, like something vital being ripped from her chest. Pain exploded through her body, stealing her breath, buckling her knees. She caught herself on the table, refusing to fall, refusing to collapse in front of them. Michael turned to Selena and pulled her close, claiming her mouth in a kiss that sealed their new bond. Selena broke the kiss with a victorious smile, her eyes finding Lucy's over Michael's shoulder. But Lucy wouldn't give her rival the satisfaction of seeing her break. She straightened, wiped the tears from her cheeks with shaking hands, and walked toward the door with her head held high, her spine straight, her dignity intact despite the devastation ripping through her. She walked away from the cabin, from Michael, from everything she'd ever loved or wanted. Michael watched her go, his arm around Selena's waist. For just a moment, one brief, flickering moment, he felt something hollow open inside him. A void where Lucy's presence had been, growing wider with each step she took away from him. He pushed the feeling down, attributing it to the adjustment of breaking a mate bond. Selena pressed closer to him, whispering promises of power and glory, and Michael let himself believe that he'd made the right choice. Behind them, Selena smiled into the darkness. Everything was going according to plan. The strongest witch had fallen. The power was within reach. And soon, very soon, it would all be hers. Lucy walked until she could no longer see the cabin, until the sounds of the crowd faded into silence. Only then, deep in the forest where no one could witness her pain, did she finally let herself shatter. She fell to her knees among the fallen leaves and wept for everything she'd lost. Her power, her coven, her mate, and the man she'd loved enough to destroy herself saving. Above her, the trees swayed in a wind she couldn't feel, and the world continued turning, indifferent to one woman's heartbreak. But somewhere in the darkness, an old witch felt the ripples of Lucy's despair and smiled with ancient wisdom. The girl's breaking was necessary. Only from complete destruction could true strength emerge. Lucy's journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. Lucy walked until the world became a blur of green and shadow. Days bled together, marked only by the sun's movement. She didn't eat, couldn't care about the emptiness in her stomach when a deeper void consumed her chest. She collapsed when exhaustion overtook her, waking with Michael's name on her lips and tears on her cheeks. The memories haunted her. Michael before the curse, laughing with eyes that crinkled at the corners. Their first kiss under the full moon. He'd loved her when other wolves avoided her for being a witch, seeing the woman beneath her power. That single choice to save him had cost her everything. Lucy stumbled over a root, her legs trembling. The forest spun, and she realized dimly she was falling. Her body had reached its limit. She collapsed in a clearing, vision darkening. The last thing she saw was sunlight filtering through the canopy, painting the world gold, warmth. That was the first sensation as consciousness returned. Lucy lay on something soft, a bed with clean linen smelling of lavender. A fire crackled nearby, and a rich, savory scent made her stomach clench with hunger. She opened her eyes to a small cottage. Herbs hung from rafters, shelves lined with jars of colored powders and liquids. An old woman stood at the hearth, stirring a pot. The woman turned, eyes holding both kindness and bone-deep weariness. "You're awake. Good." She brought Lucy stew and bread. "Eat, child. You're half-starved." Lucy ate with single-minded focus. "Thank you," she whispered when finished. The old woman settled beside the bed. "You're a witch, or were. I can smell the remnants of power on you like ash after fire." Lucy's throat tightened. "Yes, I was." "And you lost it all for love." "I know that story. I lived it myself decades ago. My mate was dying from a curse. I broke every sacred rule to save him, but the magic I used twisted him into something cruel. In the end, I had to stop him myself." "I'm so sorry." "Don't be. I made my choices as you made yours." The woman's gaze sharpened. "I understand your pain, but I also see the arrogance that led you to believe you alone could fix everything. You thought your power made you capable of rewriting nature's laws." Lucy flinched. "I did. I was wrong." "Being wrong isn't the end, child. It's the beginning. I can teach you to find yourself again, to understand true power. But you must do the work and face uncomfortable truths." Lucy met her gaze, seeing the lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. "I accept." The old woman smiled. "Good. My name is Morrigan. Nothing is truly lost, only transformed. You'll rediscover your strength through time and effort. But it will be something deeper, earned rather than given. When do we start? Tomorrow. For now, rest." The weeks that followed were the hardest of Lucy's life. Morrigan pushed Lucy to confront every uncomfortable truth. They spent hours in meditation, Lucy learning to sit with emotions rather than suppress them. "You ruled with arrogance," Morrigan said one morning. "You believed your power made you superior, didn't you?" Lucy wanted to deny it, but she'd learned Morrigan could sense lies. "Yes. I dismissed their concerns because I thought I knew better. I put my desires above my duty, above responsibility." The admission tasted bitter. Part of me did it to prove I could, to show I was above limitations. Each day brought new lessons about community, balance, and how every action rippled outward in ways both seen and unseen. "You tried to cheat death," Morrigan explained. "Magic demands balance, always. You saved Michael, but at what cost? His wolf took your power greedily, not understanding what it consumed." Lucy worked on emotional control, learning to feel anger without being consumed. She practiced humility, acknowledging limitations without shame. And slowly her magic began to return. It started with a spark during meditation, a tiny ember where there had been emptiness. She gasped, and Morrigan smiled. You felt it. That's the beginning. Over weeks, the ember grew, wind responding to thoughts, a candle flame dancing at her command. Small victories, each earned through hours of work. One evening, Lucy successfully lit a candle with a whispered word. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "You're not the same witch you were," Morrigan said warmly. "You're becoming someone who understands that strength comes from humility, that power without wisdom is destruction waiting. I'm ready to face what comes next." Morrigan's smile faded. "Are you certain? The choice you'll make won't be easy." "I'm ready." The old woman studied her, then nodded. "Very well. Then it's time you knew the truth about Michael's curse." Lucy's hands clenched as Morrigan revealed Selena's manipulation. "The curse came from within your coven. Selena orchestrated everything, knowing exactly how you'd react. She wanted your power, your position, everything. Why? Because she counted on your love and arrogance. She knew the ritual would drain you, knew Michael's wolf would consume your magic. She's been using him since, draining his power through intimacy, stealing back everything you were. Soon she'll have it all." Rage flared in Lucy's chest, but she breathed, controlled it, drew on Morrigan's lessons. The rage cooled into determination. "To stop Selena and reclaim your stolen power, Michael must willingly work with you," Morrigan said. "If he fights you, you won't succeed. You need him to remember who he is." Lucy nodded, understanding the challenge. "And when you face her, you'll stand at a crossroad. You'll choose, sacrifice Michael to restore balance and stop Selena, or save him again and risk chaos from disrupting the natural order." The pattern was repeating. Another impossible choice where love and duty would collide. But this time, Lucy understood consequences, balance, and the necessity of choosing the greater good over personal desire. "I understand. When do we go?" "Tomorrow at dawn." Michael woke from another dream of Lucy, guilt crashing over him. 3 months since he'd rejected her, and the hollowness inside grew daily. The power sang in his veins but felt wrong, tainted, like food that tasted of ash. Selena stirred beside him, pulling at his power even half asleep. Each touch drained him further, but he was too consumed by guilt to care. In dreams, he saw Lucy's face as he'd rejected her. The shattered mate bond, the ritual where she'd sacrificed everything, and he'd repaid her with cruelty. "What have I become?" he whispered. Selena's eyes opened, sharp despite her sleepy appearance. "Still thinking about her?" Michael didn't answer. "I've given you everything, power, respect, position, and still you pine for that powerless human. She gave up everything for me, and I destroyed her. She made her choice, you made yours." Selena's hand traced his chest, pulling more power. "Stop dwelling." Michael followed her commands like a puppet, spreading fear across territories, too hollow to resist. He was tired, exhausted in ways beyond physical. Tired of being controlled, of the emptiness growing daily. Most of all, tired of being without Lucy. In quiet moments, he wondered if redemption was possible. Probably not. But he dreamed of her anyway. Lucy returned at dawn, the supernatural world holding its breath. She found Michael terrorizing a pack that had refused Selena's authority. He stood in their gathering circle, eyes glowing unnaturally, presence heavy with menace. But Lucy saw the exhaustion beneath, the weariness of acting against your nature too long. "Michael," she said quietly. He spun. For one moment, relief flooded his features. Something cracked behind his eyes. "Lucy." Her name was prayer and apology. She looked at him truly, exhausted, weary, lost. Someone drowning and desperate for salvation. "Remember who you were. This power is destroying you, eating you alive. Selena's using you, stealing from you." Recognition flickered in his eyes. Hope. Desperate belief. "I know. But it's too late. I betrayed you, chose power over love, Maybe I deserve to be her puppet. Maybe this is my punishment. It's never too late. Lucy closed the distance. I forgive you, Michael. The power corrupted you. I should have known it would. We both made mistakes. You're really here? I thought I'd never see you again. I'm here. You have to fight her control. Remember us. Who we were. What we meant. Lucy's voice strengthened. Remember who you truly are. Before Michael could respond, power crackled. Selena appeared with the full coven. How touching! Selena's voice dripped false sympathy. The powerless human returns. Or, she tilted her head. Not so powerless. Interesting. Selena addressed her sisters. She's come to strip Michael of power, destroy what we've built. But Lucy saw uncertain glances among the witches. They'd witnessed months of violence, begun questioning whether ends justified means. Sisters, Lucy said, addressing them directly. I was arrogant, dismissive, cruel. I thought my power made me special. I was wrong and loss taught me. She looked at each. But Selena manipulated us all. She cursed Michael to set this in motion. Look at what she's done. Violence, fear, disruption. Does that serve the coven? Or only Selena's ambition? Elena's eyes widened. Margot looked shocked. Selena felt control slipping and reacted desperately. Enough! She seized control of Michael's mind brutally. Michael's eyes went blank, body moving without thought as Selena's will overrode his own. The battle began. Lucy dodged Michael's attacks, heartbreaking. Michael, please! Fight her! Remember the ritual, how our magic bonded. Remember our first kiss, our promises. Michael's attacks weakened. Selena's control was strong, but memories were stronger. Remember who you are, Michael Thorne. You're not a weapon. You're the man who saw past my power, the man I loved enough to give up everything for. Michael's eyes flickered, blank, then clear. He fought from inside. Guilt became a weapon against manipulation. Every cruel word, every betrayed moment rose up, burning away Selena's influence. Lucy, he gasped. I remember. Everything. His eyes cleared completely. What have I done? Selena screamed with rage. She conjured massive power, everything stolen from Michael combined with her own strength. A bolt of pure magical energy, bright enough to blind, aimed at Lucy's heart. Michael saw it, understood, and made the right choice. He threw himself between them. The power struck him full in the chest, tearing through him. He became a shield. No! Lucy screamed. In that frozen heartbeat, Lucy made her choice. She reached for Michael with magic, binding herself to him again. But this time, both their magics intertwined, witch and wolf becoming unified and unstoppable. Together they rose against Selena. Their combined power erupted, a perfect fusion overwhelming Selena, crushing her attempts to fight back. United, Lucy and Michael were everything Selena had feared. The stolen power turned against her, unable to be contained by someone who'd taken through manipulation, rather than earned through sacrifice. Selena's scream echoed as her magic was stripped away. She collapsed, powerless and defeated. The coven stared, finally seeing truth. When magic settled, Michael collapsed in Lucy's arms. She lowered him gently, cradling his head, and felt her heart shatter. He'd absorbed the killing blow, and it had cost him dearly. All supernatural strength was gone, burned away. He was just Michael again. A simple wolf. Dying. I shouldn't have wielded such power, Michael whispered. I wasn't strong enough. You're the strongest person I know. You came back. You saved me. I never stopped loving you, Lucy. Even when lost, even when cruel, it was always you. I know. I never stopped either. This time, don't save me again. Let me go having done one right thing. Lucy's power surged, desperate to save him, to repeat the ritual. But Morrigan's warning echoed. You'll have to choose, sacrifice Michael or risk chaos. Lucy held him, understanding finally what true strength meant. Not having power to act, but wisdom to know when not to. I love you, she whispered. I know. I've always known. His eyes began closing. Then hands touched her shoulders. Elena, Margot, Sarah, all her coven sisters surrounding them. You don't have to do this alone, Elena said softly. Let us help, Sarah urged. Together. Through the strength of the coven. Through sisterhood. Lucy looked at women she'd dismissed for years, seeing only compassion. Together? She asked, voice breaking. Together. 12 witches joined hands around them, forming a circle. They chanted in harmony, power flowing between them. Not draining, but shared equally, the burden distributed. Lucy felt collective magic wrapping around Michael, healing what was broken. Not all. He would never have supernatural strength again. But his life, his essence, his core, that they could save. When the spell completed, Michael's eyes opened fully. You're alive, she said, laughing through tears. We're alive, he corrected, pulling her down for a kiss tasting of second chances. Around them the coven smiled. This was true power. Not dominance, but unity. 3 days later, Lucy stood before her coven in the sacred grove. We offer you leadership, Elena said formally. Not because you're most powerful, but because you've learned what power means through the hardest lessons. Will you accept? Lucy looked at each sister, not as lesser witches, but as equals, as family. I accept. Not to rule, but to serve. Not to stand above, but among you. I promise to listen more than speak, to learn more than teach, to lead with wisdom and compassion. The coven accepted warmly. Michael stood at the grove's edge, watching with a smile. He'd healed fully, but changed. Just a wolf again, no magic, no supernatural strength, and that was enough. But not for his pack. Later, walking through the forest, Michael spoke words Lucy had been dreading. I have to leave. Lucy's heart clenched, but she nodded. I know. I hurt so many people. Even manipulated, even not fully in control, I'm still responsible. The pack sees a monster, I can't stay. Where will you go? Somewhere far away. Somewhere I can atone. Help instead of hurt. I need to learn to forgive myself. Lucy stopped, turning to face him. This isn't the end. No, just a pause. When I've found peace, when I'm whole again. I'll be here, Lucy promised, waiting. Will you wait, even if it takes years? Forever, if that's what it takes. We're bound by more than magic now, Michael. We're bound by everything we've survived together. That doesn't break just because you're leaving. They stood together in fading light, holding each other close, knowing this was goodbye but not the end. So, what did you think about the story? If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a comment. I honestly love reading your thoughts. I'll be back with a new story soon. Bye for now.